From the News Channel 5 Network, this is OpenLine.
Hello everyone, welcome to OpenLine. I am Ben Hall. Good show tonight. We are talking about one of the major issues in the last mayor's race. How do we deal with the growth in Nashville, the unprecedented growth, all the people moving here? Of course, that means challenges, shall we say, for our infrastructure. It means traffic issues, concerns, problems. We all know what is happening in Nashville. We are happy to have with us Mary Beth Eichert, Transportation and Sustainability Manager. Thank you for being here to answer our questions. So first of all, we'll start out broadly. What is the Transportation and Sustainability Manager? What does that mean?
Well, I'm basically helping the mayor get metro departments, other stakeholders, and the public to work together on moving the city forward and implementing its vision for enhanced mobility, sustainability, and livability. A lot of that was defined through the Nashville Next process, which was a 3-year process of public engagement that engaged more than 18,500 Nashvillians. In it contains, plans for major and collector streets, waterways, preserving open space. There's also stuff around the education and the economy, workforce development, how all that works together, and taking us out to the year 2040. It applies to the entire county. But there's a lot of work to do to sort of get everybody on the same page, working in the same direction. And so essentially I'm basically assisting our Director of Infrastructure in moving that vision forward.
So when we talk about, obviously, transportation, there's a lot to talk about there. That brings to mind traffic and what are we going to do to improve that situation. The MTA buses, do we have some sort of new form of mass transit, all of those kind of things. And then sustainability, that would be sidewalks, is that right? And some of the other stuff?
Yeah, resilience, for example, when we have a catastrophic flood like we had in 2010, a lot of that is created by how we have a lot of concrete in this region, so stormwater runoff, our dam system, there could be infrastructure improvements made there. Also, sustainability would apply to just the amount of electricity that we're putting out as a region, or what we're doing about our solid waste. Things that are good for the environment, good for health, and good for keeping the city an attractive place to live and work.
So with all this growth we're seeing, which is good, on many levels, what do we do as far as transportation? What are you looking at, and what are some of the things we can really do to cut down on some of the congestion and some of the traffic problems that we're seeing? What's on kind of your agenda?
Yeah, well, as a region, we've largely decided that economic development is something that we want to pursue. And so, I grew up in Nashville, and a lot of the people that you meet these days are not here. They're here because they landed a new opportunity with Nissan or a major corporate location. And, we have a lot of growth in our tech industries, healthcare, entertainment, and so forth. So to give you some perspective on the growth, between the economic projections and the census projections, between now and 2040, about 2.5 million people are going to come into the state of Tennessee. Just over half of those folks are going to come to Middle Tennessee's 10 counties. So by 2035, we'll be bigger than the Denver metropolitan area is today. And as a result of that growth, our travel time in cars is expected to double.
Travel time in cars, so that's kind of scary.
Yeah.
Because that would mean it's going to be more traffic.
Yeah. I mean, the folks that live in Chicago or Atlanta or Miami, these are big American metropolises. They're used to these types of commutes, but this is, along with a lot of other Sunbelt cities, like Birmingham or Lexington that have, don't have room to grow, this is where we're headed. And so...
Well, let me ask there, because I'm fascinated by that. when you look at those other cities that you mentioned that we all look up to as the major metropolises in our country, did they experience growth as quickly as what you're talking about with us? Were they at one point a town, I feel like a town like we are or were, and then all of a sudden, in a matter of a few years, just kind of exploded?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it depends on the economic history of those regions. Pick a city, Pittsburgh, for example, they had an amazing boom around the steel industry, and then in the 1980s, the steel industry collapsed, and a lot of jobs left that regional economy, and they basically had to come up with other industries. They were very heavily dependent upon the steel industry, and so they had to figure out how to find jobs in arts and culture, for example, and bring that city back. We just happen to be located in a place and a time in which, private sector healthcare, for example, is really taking off. We have a lot of startups here. We've invested in our entrepreneurial sector. That's where a lot of job growth comes from. The Music City brand is catching on and bringing new entertainment and cultural related jobs here that are not just music, but all of the arts and the associated jobs that go with that. And so we're sort of in a sweet spot, but we do run the risk of compromising our ability to continue growing around those various economic sectors if we start to compromise livability and quality of life. And traffic, if we consume, and congestion, if we consume all of our beautiful green, lush, open spaces that make, the rolling hills, that make Middle Tennessee a beautiful, attractive place to live, and why a company like Nissan would like to consider this as a place to locate their workforce, we run the risk of sort of stagnating our prosperity, and especially not expanding that prosperity to folks that, maybe that amount of wealth and resources hasn't touched yet, growing in an equitable way.
And when you talk about the number of people that are going to be moving here, it seems to me there's almost no way we could widen our roads enough to accommodate that. We've got to change our way of doing things.
Right. When you think of a corridor like, West End Avenue, for example, a lot of the businesses, the restaurants, the retail, the housing is built to the street. And so if, just kind of recognizing that we can't necessarily widen into the very homes and businesses that the people are right now trying to access in their cars, we have to come up with a more efficient way to move people down those corridors, not just cars. And that means accommodating in a meaningful way the other modes, such as buses or rail or a bike or even walking on foot, which, by the way, has great results for your health. So, and
other big cities, that's what people do. I think we could be moving in that direction, get sidewalks and that kind of thing. We'll focus on that. You throw some of those things out, and everybody focuses on the light rail. What's the prospect there? Yeah,
so the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is the regional planning authority for transportation across 7 counties in Middle Tennessee, they've done some studies on the potential for what they would call high-capacity rapid transit out 3 major corridors, and that would be between Nashville and Gallatin, Nashville and Franklin, and Nashville and Murfreesboro. That's where we have a high level of congestion and a lot of population density, a lot of development, a lot of growth occurring, especially the I-24 corridor right now is probably one of the worst ones. But by high-capacity rapid transit, that could take a couple of different forms. One might be a bus rapid transit type of product, and that's where, the bus is running in its own lane. It's not getting mixed up in vehicular traffic. That has the benefit of you can phase it in, whereas a rail transit, you have to lay all the track and all the overhead wire at one time. And if you're talking about building something between Nashville and Gallatin, that could take a long time and a lot of money to really phase in. There's definitely the potential for a light rail type of product. Denver has built, as you might know, a light rail system to its suburban communities. But if we want something done in the short term, we might want to consider a BRT type product, or buses running in a HOV lane that is operating truly as an HOV lane, not just in name only, but it's actually functioning the way it's supposed to. So there's solutions on the table, but those are the three main corridors where light rail is being talked about.
When people hear about buses, they get skeptical sometimes. But that is going to have to be a realistic solution. Do you feel like that's a true statement? That going forward, we're going to have to become much more dependent on buses?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about a major city like Washington, D.C. or New York City, where you really have to maximize use of that street space in order to move people. You just have so much activity going on, so much density, so many trips that are being made, that a vibrant, robust, frequent bus system that runs all hours of the day. For example, we have a lot of people who work downtown in restaurants and bars who are supporting a very vibrant tourism industry here. They get off at 3 in the morning and they're wholly dependent on the automobile to get home because we don't have service hours running that late. So that's a consideration. One of the #1 complaints we get from the Music City Star ridership, for example, that's the commuter rail line that comes in from Lebanon and Wilson County, is that when those folks leave their car at home to come in and work in Nashville for the day, they really don't feel like they know how to use the local bus system if they have a doctor's appointment at Vanderbilt or they want to meet somebody at a restaurant in Midtown and they work downtown. So being able to get somewhere on the local bus system is essential to a regional system as well.
All right, we're going to take a break, and then we'll start taking calls. There's the number, 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. If you want to talk about transit, transportation, whatever you want to talk about, give us a call. Take a break. Be back right after this.